Part 3. The Holy Roman Empire, the Patchwork Reich. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final chapter of our epic journey through the three Romes. In 1756, the French philosopher Voltaire made a sharp observation that has echoed through history textbooks ever since. This body, which was called and which still calls itself the Holy Roman Empire, was in no way holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. Voltaire was not entirely wrong. It was not holy, as it was locked in bitter medieval power struggles with the Pope. It was not Roman, as its heartland lay in the forests and valleys of Germany, far north of the Tiber. And it was hardly an empire in the traditional sense, operating not as a centralized autocracy like Rome or Constantinople, but as a sprawling, decentralized confederation of hundreds of semi-independent principalities, duchies, bishoprics, and free imperial cities. Yet, despite its baffling complexity, the Holy Roman Empire survived for 1,006 years, 800 to 1806 AD. It provided the political framework for Central Europe throughout the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and the Enlightenment. To understand modern Europe, one must understand this magnificent political puzzle. Section 1. The Birth of a Paradox, Charlemagne and Otto I. To understand how a Germanic empire came to claim the title of Rome, we must return to Christmas Day in the year 800 AD inside the old St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The coronation of Charlemagne, 800 AD. King Charles of the Franks, known to history as Charlemagne, Charles the Great, had consolidated power over modern-day France, Germany, Switzerland, the Low Countries, and northern Italy. He was the undisputed master of Western Christendom. On Christmas Day, while Charlemagne knelt in prayer, Pope Leo III unexpectedly placed an imperial crown upon his head and proclaimed him Imperator Romanorum, Emperor of the Romans. This coronation was a masterstroke of medieval political theater with two distinct motives. The papal motive: Pope Leo III needed a strong military protector against hostile Roman nobles. Furthermore, the throne in Constantinople was currently occupied by Empress Irene, who had deposed and blinded her own son. The papacy considered the imperial throne vacant, arguing that a woman could not legally rule the Roman Empire. The concept of translatio imperii. This political theology posited that supreme temporal authority over the Christian world was transferred by God from one empire to another, from Rome to the Franks. While Charlemagne's Carolingian Empire fractured among his grandsons following the Treaty of Verdun, 843 AD, the idea of a revived Western Roman Empire did not die. Otto I and the German Matrix, 962 AD. The true institutional founding of the Holy Roman Empire arrived a century later with Otto I, Otto the Great, King of the Germans. After crushing the nomadic Magyar invaders at the Battle of Lechfeld, 955 AD, and securing his borders, Otto marched into Italy to defend Pope John XII. In 962 AD, the Pope crowned Otto emperor. From this point forward, the imperial title was permanently tied to the Kingdom of Germany. To become emperor, a man first had to be elected king of Germany by the German nobility, march across the Alps into Italy, and be crowned by the Pope in Rome. Section 2. The Battle for Souls and Crowns, the Investiture Controversy. For the first century of its existence, the emperor dominated the church. Emperors routinely appointed bishops, abbots, and even deposed corrupt popes. Because bishops held vast tracts of land and exercised civil authority, emperors relied on them as loyal administrative allies who, being celibate, could not pass their lands on to hereditary heirs. However, in the 11th century, a radical reform movement within the Catholic Church sought to free the papacy from secular control. This ignited one of the greatest power struggles in European history, the Investiture Controversy. Pope Gregory VII versus Emperor Henry IV. In 1075 AD, the formidable Pope Gregory VII issued the Dictatus Papae, Decrees of the Pope, a bombshell document asserting that the Pope alone could appoint or depose bishops. The Pope had the authority to depose emperors. The Pope's feet were the only ones that all princes should kiss. The young, headstrong Emperor Henry IV retaliated by calling a council of German bishops, and demanding that Gregory step down, addressing him as not pope but false monk. Gregory VII responded with his ultimate weapon. He excommunicated Henry IV and released all of Henry's subjects from their oaths of allegiance. This was a political death sentence for Henry IV. German princes immediately used the excommunication as an excuse to rebel against imperial authority. The walk to Canossa, 1077 AD. Desperate to save his crown, Henry IV made a dramatic trek across the icy Alps in midwinter to the castle of Canossa in northern Italy, where Pope Gregory was staying. For 3 consecutive days, the emperor stood outside the castle gates in the freezing snow, barefoot and wearing a coarse woolen penitent's hair shirt, weeping and begging for forgiveness. Gregory VII, bound by his duties as a priest, was forced to lift the excommunication. While Henry saved his crown, the prestige of the papacy had reached unprecedented heights, while the sacred authority of the emperor was permanently damaged. The Concordat of Worms, 1122 AD. The conflict dragged on for decades until a compromise was struck in 1122 at the Concordat of Worms. The Church retained the sole right to invest bishops with spiritual authority, represented by the ring and staff. The emperor retained the right to invest bishops with secular authority, lands, and feudal duties, and to be present at elections. The long-term winner of this contest was neither the pope nor the emperor, but the German territorial princes. Decades of civil war severely weakened imperial control, ensuring that Germany would remain politically fractured while France and England developed into centralized nation-states. Section 3. The Imperial Machinery, the Golden Bull, and the House of Habsburg. How did a state with no centralized army, no permanent capital, and no unified tax system actually function? It relied on a unique constitution built over centuries. The Golden Bull of 1356. For centuries, imperial elections were chaotic and frequently led to civil war. In 1356, Emperor Charles IV issued the Golden Bull, a foundational constitutional decree that stabilized the election process. The Golden Bull established a fixed council of 7 prince-electors, Kurfürsten, who held the exclusive right to choose the king of the Romans. This system removed papal approval from the election process entirely. Whomever the 7 electors chose became the recognized sovereign. The dynasty of monopolists, the Habsburgs. In 1438, Albert II of the Austrian House of Habsburg was elected emperor. From that moment until the empire's demise in 1806, the Habsburg family held an almost uninterrupted monopoly on the imperial crown, with a brief 3-year exception in the 18th century. Through strategic dynastic marriages rather than conquest, the Habsburgs accumulated vast land across Spain, the Low Countries, Austria, Hungary, and Naples. Their motto became AIOU, Austriae Estate Imperare Orbi Universo. It is Austria's destiny to rule the whole world. Section 4. Fractured by faith, the Reformation and the 30 Years' War. In 1517, an Augustinian monk named Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the door of Wittenberg Castle Church, sparking the Protestant Reformation. In the Holy Roman Empire, religious dissent immediately translated into political rebellion. Many German princes embraced Lutheranism not only out of spiritual conviction, but as a political weapon to seize Catholic Church properties and assert independence from the staunchly Catholic Habsburg Emperor, Charles V. The Peace of Augsburg, 1555. After decades of religious warfare, Charles V was forced to agree to the Peace of Augsburg in 1555, establishing a legal principle that altered Central European politics. Cuius regio, ius religio, whose realm, his religion. This meant that every individual ruler within the empire, whether a duke, prince, or bishop, could choose whether their territory would be Lutheran or Catholic. Their subjects were forced to convert or emigrate. The 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648. The Peace of Augsburg proved to be a temporary band-aid. Tensions between the Protestant Union and the Catholic League reached a boiling point in May 1618, when Protestant nobles in Prague threw 3 Catholic imperial officials out of a window of Prague Castle, an event known as the Defenestration of Prague. The resulting 30 Years' War was one of the most destructive conflicts in human history. What began as an internal religious dispute within the empire exploded into a continental war involving Denmark, Sweden, France, and Spain. Mercenary armies crisscrossed Germany, looting, burning, and killing indiscriminately. Out of a pre-war German population of roughly 20 million, an estimated 4 to 8 million people died from violence, famine, and typhus outbreaks. Entire regions lost over 50% of their population. Luther's 95 Theses, 1517 AD. Martin Luther sparks the Protestant Reformation in Wittenberg. Peace of Augsburg, 1555 AD. Establishes cuius regio, ius religio, legalizing Lutheranism within the empire. Defenestration of Prague, 1618 AD. Bohemian Protestants reject Habsburg rule, initiating the 30 Years' War. Peace of Westphalia, 1648 AD. Ends the war, granting full territorial sovereignty to over 300 imperial states. The Peace of Westphalia, 1648. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 finally ended the bloodshed, fundamentally rewriting the European political order. It recognized Calvinism alongside Lutheranism and Catholicism. It granted the 350 states of the empire land to show height, territorial sovereignty, allowing them to conduct their own foreign policy and forge alliances independently of the emperor. The Swiss Confederacy and the Dutch Republic were officially recognized as independent states, leaving the empire permanently. The political philosopher Samuel von Pufendorf described the post-1648 Holy Roman Empire as an irregular body, resembling a monster, monstro simile. The emperor was now little more than a ceremonial figurehead presiding over a loose league of independent states dominated by 2 rival powers: Catholic Austria, ruled by the Habsburgs, and Protestant Prussia, ruled by the Hohenzollerns. Section 5. The Sunset of the Empire, Napoleon, and the Final Curtain. By the late 18th century, the Holy Roman Empire was an archaic relic of the Middle Ages trying to survive in the age of nationalism, secularism, and gunpowder. It possessed a staggering array of internal customs barriers, obsolete legal courts, and tiny city-states completely unprepared for modern industrial warfare. The force that finally shattered this ancient structure was the French Revolution and its greatest military genius, Napoleon Bonaparte. The rise of Napoleon. Following the execution of Louis XVI, the Holy Roman Empire declared war on revolutionary France. However, Napoleon's rapid marches and revolutionary artillery tactics humiliated the coalition forces. At the Battle of Austerlitz, December 2nd, 1805, known as the Battle of the Three Emperors, Napoleon decisively defeated the combined armies of Emperor Francis II of the Holy Roman Empire and Tsar Alexander I of Russia. The creation of the Confederation of the Rhine, 1806. Napoleon realized that to neutralize Austria and Prussia permanently, he needed to dismantle the Holy Roman Empire entirely. In July 1806, Napoleon coerced 16 German states, including Bavaria, Württemberg, and Baden, to break away from the Holy Roman Empire and form a French puppet alliance called the Confederation of the Rhine, Rheinbund. Napoleon declared himself the official protector of this new confederation. The abdication of Francis II, August 6, 1806. Surrounded by French armies and facing an ultimatum from Napoleon, Emperor Francis II recognized that the Holy Roman Empire was dead in all but name. He feared that Napoleon might attempt to claim the imperial crown for himself. On August 6, 1806, Francis II issued a formal decree. He abdicated the throne of the Holy Roman Empire. He dissolved the Holy Roman Empire entirely, releasing all German states and officials from their feudal obligations to the imperial crown. He declared himself Emperor Francis I of Austria, preserving his family's primary lands. After 1,006 years, The First Reich quietly passed into history without a single battle fought specifically to defend its existence. Conclusion: the legacy of the three Romes. We have traveled across 2 millennia of history and met three distinct entities that claimed the legacy of Rome. The Western Roman Empire fell 476 AD, the classical, Latin-speaking superpower that collapsed under economic rot, internal instability, and mass barbarian migrations, giving birth to medieval feudal Europe. The Eastern Roman Empire/Byzantium fell 1453 AD, the Greek-speaking, Orthodox Christian survivor that preserved classical civilization for 1,000 years behind the impenetrable walls of Constantinople before succumbing to the Ottoman Turks. The Holy Roman Empire dissolved 1806 AD, the decentralized, multi-ethnic Central European Confederation created by Charlemagne and Otto that balanced imperial power against papal authority and laid the seeds for modern federalism in Europe. Why does this story matter today? Because the idea of Rome was never just about a city or an army. It was an enduring political ideal, the dream of a unified civilization governed by law, order, and common values. Though each empire eventually fell to time, war, and transformation, their legal systems, languages, architectural monuments, and cultural traditions remain the foundational pillars of our modern Western world. Conclusion: the shadow of the eagle. To summarize our journey, the Western Roman Empire fell to barbarian invasions in 476 AD, leaving a legacy of law and the Catholic Church. The Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, survived for a millennium, preserving Greek culture and classical knowledge until its fall in 1453. The Holy Roman Empire was a medieval German confederation blessed by the Pope, surviving as a complex political entity until 1806. Why does this matter? Because the idea of Rome never truly died. Rome represented order, civilization, and universal rule. It was an idea so powerful that kings and conquerors spent the next 2,000 years trying to resurrect it. Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of the three Romes. Please click like, subscribe, and share, and tell us the next topic you want to listen.